Let's bring in our political editor, Andrew Clennell now. Andrew, you and I have been covering this pandemic from the start, and we've seen, shows of cooperation, the National Cabinet, but underneath, simmering time to time, there has been tension between the federal and state governments. Hasn't it erupted today?
Yeah, good summary there, Kieran. The vaccine rollout all started with such promise from a PR point of view just over a month ago.
Why don't we give them a B for vaccine? B for vaccine.
Oh, B. Yeah, all right.
That's great.
Like that.
Very good.
A great front page image came out of that in the Daily Telegraph, but it was a different front page which has set up open warfare between the feds and the states on the vaccine rollout today. This federal government data resulting in an accusation the states were sitting on vaccine doses in the context of the Brisbane breakout and lockdown, only having administered 50% of them.
What we needed to do is to make sure we had enough for that second vaccine. If the Commonwealth can tell us what their supply is, we are more than happy to roll out the rest of that as quickly as possible.
We have not had certainty of supply to our hospitals through the vaccine rollout so far. That has required the holding back of enough doses to ensure that we can administer the second dose.
The only way we'll have a chance of meeting those deadlines is if the Commonwealth and the state government work cooperatively. But what is also extremely unfair is that when we are given 24 or 48 hours notice about how many new doses we're getting, and as you can appreciate, disseminating that within 24 hours or 48 hours is a difficult task. And so I just want to put the facts on the table.
So Gladys Berejiklian effectively calling the federal government unfair there. New South Wales Health Minister Brad Hazzard actually calling for an apology.
Then go dumping figures into the media, which actually are quite misleading, is wholly inappropriate, very, very disappointing, and I think is not really helpful in ensuring community confidence. So let me make it very clear, I'm as angry as I have ever been in this 15 months of war against this virus. And I think that the federal government should be proffering some apologies to not only our government but other governments around the country.
A state of origin bipartisan blow-up. Scott Morrison trying to calm the horses, saying he doesn't want to get involved in a tit-for-tat game.
It's accused you of Canberra of a lack of transparency because of a supply issue.
Well, I don't agree with that. They have a 12-week forward projection of dose distribution to all states and territories. The Premier has his. All the other states have theirs. But again, I have no interest in getting involved in the tit-for-tat on vaccine.
At least Stephen Marshall in South Australia was nodding. The PM also saying it was unfair to hold him to his original declared target on January 7 of 4 million vaccines by the end of March, because since then the EU has blocked about 3 million vaccines to Australia.
Well, that target was explained months ago, that was dispensed with because of the problems we had with vaccines not coming from overseas. So that was dealt with months ago. So that being put up as some constant target is just politics.
The PM using language Brendan Murphy, the Health Department boss, used 3 weeks ago at a press conference, that we are not in a vaccine race.
I certainly am not making any criticism of that. It's a big job, we're all doing it. It's not a race, it's not a competition.
It's not a competition, but we do have a lockdown. I asked Health Minister Greg Hunt's office for the number of doses administered and the number that are being given to the states yesterday. They told me they couldn't get the numbers. Instead, it appears that information went to the Daily Telegraph. Good for the Telegraph. But Berejiklian claims the information was wrong.
We appreciate that they can't tell us all the time what we're getting because of the issues that are before them. They therefore need to offer us the same opportunity to respond to untrue statements about New South Wales lagging in relation to this.
In short, the argument from New South Wales is that the Daily Telegraph were given all the data on what states were at, but they never said where the federal government rollout was at. The state of New South Wales is giving 300,000 doses to healthcare workers and the like, and has already given 100,000. The feds, Berejiklian says, are responsible for 3 million. and have only administered 50,000. The Premier saying that they are only getting 24 to 48 hours notice that the doses are coming, and it's so shambolic that they're getting 45,000 one day when they're expecting 13,000. Chris Bowen from the opposition sticking the boot into the feds in an interview with Kieran will play later this afternoon.
If Scott Morrison was fair dinkum, he would have used the National Cabinet to work with the states on the rollout. He uses the National Cabinet as a shield when anything goes wrong. He's always happy to claim credit. I bet if this rollout was going well, Kieran, he'd be out there every day, you know, associating himself with the rollout, getting the photo ops. He'd be there saying, oh, this is your Liberal government delivering. When it goes wrong, he's nowhere to be seen, and he's duck shovelling and putting it all on the Premiers. And I think the Australian people have had a gutful.
Bit of a free kick for him, really. The Morrison government seems to lurch from problem to problem at the moment. Anthony Albanese continues to go small target and under the radar, this time at the Labor conference. No renewables target, no electric cars target, just a tax break on electric cars promised. Some days in the past few weeks, it feels like the federal government is its own opposition. Scott Morrison must be looking forward to an Easter rest, Kieran.
Yeah, indeed. And I think one of the points you made there is central to everything here. And the Prime Minister repeating this language today, that it's not a race, or as I think Brendan Murphy said, it's not a burning platform. But the problem is it actually is. I mean, it is a race. And so they fundamentally just got that. They've got that wrong. I mean, we've got to get this out as fast as we can, to avoid situations where you have further lockdowns. And mate, if you said to the people in the tourism industry in Queensland, it's not a burning platform, what do you think the response would be? I'm sorry, well, in terms of our businesses, it sure is.
Yeah, this is the biggest danger of the federal government going forward. And they've decided to own it, Kieran. There are some elements of the response to the pandemic they've decided they're not owning, state borders being one, lockdowns being another. They've decided to own this. Having decided to own it, they're going to be held responsible for it. A lot of focus on the women's issues of the past few weeks, the allegations at Parliament House. That hasn't been good for the government. Their poll numbers have dropped. This could be even worse. The government privately believes next few weeks, domestic production, things will get much better, but it won't be seamless. This is the first big bump, and some might say it's all self-inflicted.
And before we move on, just in the context of that race as well, other nations are moving very quickly. And if you've got a situation where other countries are vaccinated, international travel reopens, but ours aren't, well, you know, that's not a great look as you head into an election year either, Andrew.
Shocker. And that's where, to be frank, Kieran, that's where it looks like we're going to end up. And, you know, there is really this view that we are going to be slower off the mark than the rest of the world, and we're going to have no tolerance for any COVID cases still, as the states won't. And so how can you not have quarantine and properly throw open the international borders? It's a really big dilemma, which will come around about election time.